Alright, well, we're back again with Jesus the superhero. And so, just as a refresher, last time Jesus was dealing with people who were having a lack of faith and having trouble seeing him as the Son of God, seeing him as who he is. And so even though they heard these amazing teachings and even given that they saw healing, they just couldn't believe that he was still just the carpenter. And so we've gone through we've gone through seeing Jesus as master over the natural, master over the supernatural, over healing, over death, and here even having great wisdom. And so Mark is answering this question, who is Jesus? And the picture of Jesus just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And so we really have to be, have our eyes open to see what Mark is trying to show us here. Because Mark is he really wants us to see how amazing Jesus is. And so this picture is just getting just huge and just bigger and bigger, and sometimes though I think that when we start to see God as holy and righteous and omnipotent, all powerful, all knowing, we start to get afraid of him. We start to fear God in an unhealthy way. We should fear God. We should have a healthy respect for God, but we shouldn't fear him in the way that we run away. That was one of the things in the garden with Adam and Eve. They sinned and then they ran away from God. Sin tries to tell us that we need to run away from God because he's holy. But the thing is that along with his holiness there's this incredible love for us. And so really we should also be looking at that and looking at the love that he has for us, the mercy, the grace, the provision, that really that he takes care of us, and he's as much our shepherd as he is our king. He's as much right beside us as he is over us. And so in today's lesson, what we're going to look at is God as provider, but as Jesus as provider, and just what he's teaching here. What he teaches his disciples, and he teaches others, and Mark is really trying to get through to us this understanding of relying on God, relying on Jesus, and understanding that he'll take care of us. And so the very next thing that he goes through, the very next thing that he goes to is, he says, he says, calling the 12 to him, he began to send them out 2 by 2 and gave them authority over impure spirits. These were his instructions. Take nothing for the journey except a staff. No bread, no bag, no money in your belts. Wear sandals, but not an extra shirt. Whenever you enter a house, stay there until you leave that town. And if any place is not willing, and if any place will not welcome you or listen to you, leave that place and shake the dust from your feet as a testimony against them. And then, so they went out and they began to do this ministry that they were called to do. But catch there that he says, take nothing with you. And he lists and he says, look, don't rely on your own wealth for your whatever that is. Don't rely on that for your provision. God's going to take care of you. Just go. God will take care of you. This is what he's teaching the disciples as they go out and as they minister. And so they go and they do exactly what Jesus was told them to do. And then the very next thing we see in Mark is the place where John ends up being beheaded, John the Baptist, and that whole situation. And so he's beheaded, he's laid in a tomb, and that's all Mark tells us there. But those who would know about Jesus likely would have known that John was his cousin. And so Jesus gets this information that John was beheaded, and so in this midst of him hurting, I mean, he was both holy and divine. He is both holy and divine, or holy and human. What we need to wrap our head around is he hurt too, you know. He wouldn't have wanted to see anyone hurt. And we start to see that through the rest of this story as we go forward, that he cares for others, that he has a genuine care. You know, in this time with COVID-19 and everything, you know, we start to kind of redefine what we think of as a hero. Those people who show compassion, those people who show caring for others and open up their heart and their lives for others, and do amazing things to take care of them. We start to look at those people and go, you know, those people are heroes. And in this time of his own personal distress, we pick up the story in Mark 6, verse 30. It says, the apostles gathered around Jesus and reported to him all they had done and taught. So they come back. He sent them out, and they come back. They finish their mission, and so they're telling Jesus about everything that they did and everything that they said. And says, then because so many people were coming and going, they did not even have a chance to eat. And so they went out, they were preaching, they were teaching, they were healing, they were casting out demons, they were doing these things that Jesus had given them authority to do. And then they came back and were telling Jesus about what they had been doing. And obviously people had followed them and stuff. And so there was a lot of activity around them. A lot of people just coming to see the disciples and to see Jesus. And so Mark tells us there was so many people coming and going that they didn't even have time to eat. And so he said to them, Jesus said to them, come with me by yourselves to a quiet place and get some rest. You know, it's so easy for us to think about food and clothing and shelter as things that are necessary. But how often do we think of rest as necessary, as something that we need? But Jesus knew that they went out, they were doing kingdom work, they came back, they needed rest. They needed rest. And so Jesus says, come with me. We're gonna go to a quiet place so you guys can get some rest. And so Mark says they went away by themselves in a boat. So nobody else could be in the boat with them. They just them in a boat to a solitary place, to a quiet place. So they were alone, away from everybody, so they could get breath, so they could get some rest. We need that. We need rest. We need to lay down in green pastures. We need God to lead us beside quiet waters. We need Him to restore us. And Jesus is doing that very thing. Maybe we don't often think of a shepherd as a superhero, but Jesus is a super shepherd. He is amazing. And he comes with a constant reminder to rely on God, to rely on Him, not to rely on our own understanding and our own wealth, our own ability to provide for ourselves. You know, and I think about this, and I think about the fact that it's an apple, just an apple. In this apple, there are seeds. I could take these seeds and I could plant them outside in all the right environment, best soil, water them, give them the best care. And still not grow. I was sitting down eating a burger one day, and on the burger it lists out all of the ingredients, the wheat for the bun, and the sesame seeds, and the tomatoes, and the lettuce, and the onions, and of course the cucumbers for the pickles, and the meat, and the cheese, and I got to thinking about it. I go and spend a little bit of money to provide for myself a burger. That's the end of the line, though. That's not everything that came before. That's not the farming that had to happen, the ranching that had to happen. That's not all the life that had to happen to provide me with food. And that's the case whether or not it's the case for anybody who, whether you eat meat or not, life has to happen. And the only way life happens is through God. He provides. He makes the apple grow. He makes the tomato grow. Makes the cow grow. He provides. And as much as he provides food, he provides rest. And Scripture tells us that we're given a Sabbath. Not so that we have this holy day that we don't work on or do anything on, but so that we have a day that we rest and remember all that God has done for us. We're supposed to remember who God is and what he does and how amazing he is and how much he provides for us, so that we can remember how blessed we are, no matter what's going on in our lives. And so here, while Jesus is hurting from the news of his cousin's death, and getting this report from his tired out disciples, he says, "Come with me, we'll get some rest." And so they go out into this boat. They rest, and then Mark says, but many who saw them leaving recognized them and ran on foot from all the towns and got there ahead of them. So they had the nice little rest of the boat ride. They get to the other side, and here's this crowd of people waiting for them. It says, when Jesus landed and saw a large crowd, he had compassion on them. And catch this. Because they were like sheep without a shepherd. That's been why I've been talking about this language of a shepherd. He saw that they were running astray. They were looking for something. They were looking for help. They were looking for guidance. They were looking for protection. They were looking for hope. They were looking for something to live for. They were looking for a shepherd. And so he had compassion on them. So he began teaching them many things. Mark goes on to tell us, by this time, it was late in the day. So the disciples came to him. Send the people away, the disciples came to him. Sorry. This is a remote place, they said, and it's already very late. Send the people away so that they can go to the surrounding countryside and villages and buy themselves something to eat. Send them away so they can take care of themselves. Send them away so that they can use their own provisions, their own money, and provide for themselves. You're starting to notice what Mark is doing here? But he answered, as Jesus, you give them something to eat. You take care of them. You provide for them. They said to him, that would take more than a half year's wages. Are we to go and spend that much on bread and give it to them to eat? Instead of Jesus answering this question, he asks them another question. He says, how many loaves do you have? Go and see. Go see how much you have. It says, when they found out, they said, 5 and 2 fish. They have 5 loaves and 2 fish. It says, then Jesus directed them to have all the people sit down in groups on the green grass. You know, it's interesting, Mark's details, because it's easy for us to read over details without catching it. But Mark just talked about Jesus as shepherd. And then here he says he had them sit down in groups on the green grass. Just like the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He leads me beside quiet waters. He makes me lay down in green pastures. Jesus is shepherd. Jesus is taking care of these people, making them lay down, making them sit down in green pastures, on the green grass, to take care of their physical needs. It says, don't send them away. There's too much work to do. Let's take care of their physical needs too. And so, it says, so they sat down in groups of hundreds and 50s, taking the 5 loaves and 2 fish, and looking up to heaven, he gave thanks and broke the loaves. So Jesus gave thanks and broke the loaves. Then he gave them to his disciples to distribute to the people. It says, he also divided the 2 fish among them all. Well, already so far in this story, we're talking about groups, multiple groups of 50s and 100s, plus the 12 disciples. And so here we are. They're out having a picnic with 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. With, well, what we know so far is hundreds of people. Don't think that it would go that far. But then we go on with the story. They all ate and were satisfied. And the disciples picked up 12 basketfuls of broken pieces of bread and fish. There wasn't just enough. It wasn't like they ate the last crumb and went, whoa, we're all full. Man, it was just the perfect. No, God provides abundantly. Abundantly. It's not just on the narrow line, it's abundantly. Abundant provision. So they pick up the 12 baskets of bread and fish. Then Mark tells us the number of men who had eaten was 5,000. Now likely some of their wives and children would have come along with them. So the number was most likely well over 5,000. But 5,000 people on 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. It's pretty amazing. Jesus provided for them. Provided for them. Throughout this whole thing, we see this call for us to rest on the provision of God. And to remember that that provision is not just ordinary, but extraordinary. It is super. It is more than what we would expect. To rest in Him. To trust in Him. To have faith in Him. For all of our needs. Whether it's physical or spiritual or emotional or mental, whatever it is, we rely on Him to fill us, to fulfill us, to take care of us, to shepherd us. We know He has the power and the wisdom to do so. And we know that He has the compassion, the love. Mark is filling out this Jesus, this superhero, this amazing, amazing man, prophet, Son of God, this person that He wants us so desperately to know. He doesn't want us to have so high a view of Jesus as to think that He would never bend His knee and pick us up to take care of us. Because He's always right there to take care of us. He also wants us to understand, to look past our earthly vision and see the God of the universe willing and compassionate to love us and to take care of us in all of our needs. If that isn't a superhero, I don't know what is. He's got extraordinary power and extraordinary love and extraordinary wisdom. And we can place our faith in Him in all things. He's with us, always. He's always right there with us, reminding us of His love, taking care of us, our every breath, our every heartbeat. But we're called to rest in him, to put our faith in him, to truly give everything over to him, and to understand that he can and will take care of us. You ever think about the apple? How many varieties of apple there are? How at one point this was a flower that turned into a fruit. How complex the apple is. It's just one of his creations. We're another. We think about creation, we think about all that he's done. He's capable. And he loves us. So as we go through this difficult time, remember that. Put your faith in him. But he's also provided us each other. And I'm more than happy to be there for you. Text me, call me, email me, message me on Facebook or Instagram. I love to pray with you. I love to talk with you. Love to just sit and laugh with you. Whatever it is. Maybe you have Bible questions. Maybe you have questions on scripture or theology. Whatever it is. I'm here. I'm glad to be. Until next time.